Hello, welcome to the channel. I'm Neil, your DevOps expert, and I also run a group called Tech Answers Club. I'll tell you more about that later. Well, today I'm going to talk about Ansible, what it is, what it's used for, and how you can get loads of benefit from looking after that sort of thing. So let's get into it. Infrastructure takes management. If it doesn't get managed, it turns into a giant mess. I'm sure if you've ever worked in a data center, you might have seen those pictures of cables, cable management, or rather not cable management. You get the back of a rack and there's cables everywhere, different colors, spaghetti, mess. It's awful, a bit like some code I've looked at. But with proper cable management, it can look nice and neat and tidy and make it really easy to maintain it. After all, if we're looking after lots of servers, we want them to be easy to be looked after and maintained. That's what Ansible can help us with. Ansible, yes, it's a tool for configuration management. It can be saved into Git repos, so it counts as infrastructure as code. It can also manage infrastructure like AWS, but I would recommend you use Terraform for that purpose. Ansible really excels at looking at the configuration and keeping everything up to date on your servers. It can install, remove software, update configuration, and other household keeping tasks. And what is it made up of? Well, it's made up of an inventory, that's what your servers are, playbooks, a sort of a link between the servers and what you want it to do, roles, which is a group of tasks. The tasks are what actually configure the server. We've then got variables because we want to keep the variables separate to the code. And we have groups where we can group the hosts together. So the fundamentals is infrastructure as code. And it means that we can have everything in theory written down in code, execute Ansible playbooks, and have that become a reality on our servers. One of the benefits of having it in code is that we can run it over and over again. Not just for other servers, but even on the same server, so we can prevent configuration drift. And that'll take our management to the next level. Playbooks. So a playbook is a YAML file that links the inventory to the tasks through the guise of roles. It tells us what server groups should be applied with what roles, and then the roles contain the tasks, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Roles can also be made up of modules. Modules are reusable pieces of code. So if we've written some tasks and put them into a role, that means we can then store those as a module. Providing we keep the variables separate, then we can share those modules with other bits of our business, or our colleagues, or our friends, or maybe even our friends will share their modules with us so that we don't have to do the hard work if they've already done that. Take a look at Ansible Galaxy for more examples of this. Variables are important because not every server is the same. Some of them have unique attributes like the server name, or if they're hosting a website, the website address, the name of the SSL certificate, that kind of thing. And we can group hosts, the name for servers in Ansible land, into groups, funny enough. And then if we can apply variables to the host level and to the group level. And at the group level, we can say, well, we want the hosts to have this role. And that's what the playbook does. So let's go into a demo. We have a server that I've created and a Ansible playbook that I've created called Docker Host Ansible. So let's look at that. It's got several files in it, a README, of course, and then we have the playbook itself. And then when we look at the playbook, it's going to show us all sorts of things. But what we need is the hosts. The host file, like I said, contains variables that we can apply to the groups. So that's great. Let's look at that host file. Well, let's create one first, shall we? So we've got our host, which is called Ansible demo, and all the hosts need to be in a group. So let's throw it into a group. Awesome. Now, because we're going to SSH into the host, let's make sure that we can contact it over the network by pinging it. There we are. And so this is what the Ansible playbook command is going to look like, but we're not going to run that straight away. Let's SSH into the server. I used another Ansible playbook in order to configure this server so that I can SSH onto it using my username. And we're going to run the Docker command, and it's not there. So let's come out of that. Oh, a bit too far. Let's go back into the folder, shall we? And so let's look at the actual playbook. Now this playbook also contains the NTP role. We don't need NTP because this server's already got NTP set up on it. So we'll comment that out, and we're not hosting anything, so we'll get rid of Let's Encrypt as well. Essentially all it's going to do is install Docker for us. So let's run the playbook. It runs through. It's going to remove old Docker versions. It's going to add the dependencies that we need and the repo, and then finally speed this bit up, install Docker. It took about 25 seconds on my machine. So, like I said, we can run these things multiple times, and that's okay. It will just reassert what configuration you want to happen, and everything else will be skipped if it doesn't need to do any work. And this is all done off of the host file that we created earlier. Remember, here's the playbook, and the playbook contains roles. The roles contain tasks, and the tasks start off with a main file, and then we can do stuff with the main file, like check the operating system. So we can have different tasks for Debian, and we have different tasks for Red Hat because they use different commands. And then finally we've got the tasks at the bottom level, where we are doing those tasks that I mentioned earlier, including installing Docker, and most importantly, starting the Docker service. So now, if we head on over to the server again, lo and behold, Docker now exists. And there it is. A very simple example for you. But what else can happen in the real world? Well, scaling is a thing. Doing it on one server is fair enough, but you could probably achieve the same just by SSHing into it. Not much time saved. However, if you've got multiple servers, let's say we've got 20 web servers, you wouldn't really want to log into 20 web servers, set up the accounts, add the packages that we need, create those configuration files. That would take you a long time, especially if you're in a dynamic environment. More on that later. But if you want to reconfigure all those servers, having this playbook just to play, and it's all done in, well, in that case, about 35 seconds. Lovely. You can also use the playbook on multiple environments. Many of my customers, they have a dev environment, they've got a testing environment, a staging environment, and then a production environment. And so you can use the same code against all those environments and ensure that we've got consistency across all of those, which is very important in our land, makes things easier. But there are some pitfalls. Ansible does allow you to write custom code. You can run a bash script or something. However, if done badly, or without an awareness, it means that you lose that ability to run it over and over again. Now, if you're just running a bit of bash code that stuffs an extra line at the bottom of a file, then every time you run the code, it's going to stick that line at the bottom of the file. Before long, you've got 6, 7, 8 lines all identical at the bottom of the file, which is probably not what you want. But with mindfulness, you can make sure that it runs multiple times. Of course, the inbuilt functions have already got this in mind, and so they'll do that sort of thing for you. Dynamic inventories, I've mentioned this already. Let's say our servers are in AWS. We don't necessarily know what the host name is going to be. We don't even know what the IP address is going to be. So we can run a utility script that will go off into AWS, into our account, and gather what the servers are. We can put tags on those servers, and those tags will form group names inside Ansible inventories. So then we can target the groups in the same way that we always do. And we know what server that's going to affect based on the server tags. Now, we've also got secrets. What's a secret? Well, we've got our variables, haven't we? And we don't want variables that contain sensitive information inside our repository. Ansible Vault enables us to encrypt those secrets so that we can store them in the repository and they're still relatively safe. This way we can use continuous deployment, run the same code over and over again with our secrets. So we're reasserting what our server should look like, and we've got our secrets safe so that it's got all that important information like database usernames and passwords and stuff away from prying eyes. Performance. Ansible, after all, is just SSHing onto the server, doing the thing, and then exiting again. And so we can do certain things to make this a faster process. We can run forks, which enables us to contact more than one server at a time. So if you are configuring those 20 servers, like I said last time, we can run forks 20, which means we then hit all 20 of those servers at the same time. We can also run async operations. Other configuration management tools like Puppet run async by default, and you have to, massage them a little bit to do things in the right order. Well, Ansible will do things in order by default, but you can tell it to do certain tasks asynchronously at the same time, so it doesn't have to do them one after the other. This can speed up your workbooks. We can also disable host key checking. If you're in a trusted environment, then that might save you 1-2 seconds on every SSH connection. And given that Ansible connects to the server, does the thing, and disconnects from the server, that can be significant if you've got a lot of tasks in your playbook. So that's Ansible. We talked about the inventory, we talked about the playbooks, which ties the inventory to the roles. We talked about the roles and the fact that we can go to Galaxy to get some modules. We got variables that enable us to personalize the servers. We can even encrypt the variables with Vault. And then we've got groups, which keeps all our hosts together and tidy. If you want to ask me any questions about this, put them in the comments below. I'd really appreciate a like as well. And come and ask me questions at our weekly Q&A. Every Wednesday at lunchtime, I run a Q&A where you can come along for free and ask me questions. Sounds ideal, doesn't it? Head over to techanswers.club, link in below, and you'll be able to do just that. So, hope that's helped you understand what Ansible is. Again, if you've got any questions, throw them in the comments. And until then, may all your deployments be smooth.